President, today I have just introduced legislation in regards to our efforts to once again try to address a farm bill in behalf of our nation's farmers and ranchers, dairy producers. And we passed a farm bill in the last session. It was one of the first bills where we achieved regular order, i.e. where every senator had an opportunity to have an amendment. Many did. We had over 300, as I recall. We, meaning the distinguished chairperson of the committee, Senator Stabenow, myself, as the ranking member at that particular time. Thank goodness not all 300 demanded a vote, but we voted, I think, 73 times. And we passed a bill by a good bipartisan margin. I hope we can get back to that. The chairperson, Senator Stabenow, is working very diligently in regards to produce another farm bill. I see the distinguished majority leader coming to the floor. He was very helpful in our pleas to bring a farm bill to the floor. Senator Reid actually asked me whether or not we could do it in 3 days like I promised, and we did it in 2.5. And so with cooperation, we got that done. It was the first, as I say, business that we took up in the last session where we did have regular order. I hope we can, keep that record. And I thank the majority leader for his efforts in that regard. Why am I bringing this up now, even before we mark up in regards to a bill I've introduced? And that basically is because farmers are now planting their crop despite 3 years of drought and all sorts of hardship and all sorts of uncertainty about a farm bill. We have extended the 2008 Act. That's not what we wanted to do in the Senate, but that's what happened. And so we hope that that doesn't happen again. And we hope that we can work again in a bipartisan way to produce a product that not only helps the farmer and rancher, but we have, 6 billion people in the world today. We're going to go to 9 billion people in the next several decades. I think everybody in the Senate should be aware of that. It's an overriding issue. We're going to have to double our ag production if we are going to continue our efforts to feed this country in a troubled and hungry world. That even has national security implications. You show me a country that does not have a stable food supply, I will show you a country that's in a lot of trouble. Just read the Mideast and what's happening there. So what do farmers want? I mean, what was the number one issue that we heard, we meaning again, Senator Stabenow and I, where we held farm hearings, both in Michigan, specialty crops, in Kansas, program crops, wheat, corn, soybeans, et cetera. Over and over again, the number one issue was crop insurance. And we were trying to get out of the business or stay out of the business, again, of farmers planning for the government and, quote, farm subsidies that always make the headlines on the Washington Post from people who, for the most part, have never been west of the Missouri River. But at any rate, despite all the criticisms of the farm program, I think we consolidated and reformed 100 different programs. We saved roughly about $24 billion, the first authorizing committee to do so. And we also strengthened and improved crop insurance. And that was the number one issue for farm lenders, number one issue for farmers and ranchers, and number one issue for everybody involved in the miracle of agriculture that allows us to do this so that Americans have the safest, most abundant, and cheapest food in the history of the world. I hear time and time again from our producers and their lenders that crop insurance is the cornerstone of the farm safety net. I hear it at home in Kansas. We hear it in the Agriculture Committee. I hear it every time I speak to producers here in Washington. And I know that the chairperson of the committee, Senator Stabenow, has heard the same thing. And all members of the committee know, I think, the value of crop insurance. I mean all members of the distinguished committee on agriculture. So as we head into another round of farm bill debates, and I know the chairperson would like to get it done, like to mark up a bill in the next 3 weeks. I don't know if that's possible or not. We'll see. We did that in 2.5 days in the last session of Congress. Whether we can do that kind of thing again, I'm not sure. But I'm constantly asked for my priorities And my priorities reflect what I have heard from farmers and ranchers at home and their bankers and their lenders and everybody that wants consistency. Number one priority for the Farm Bill is crop insurance. Now, if you doubt the importance of crop insurance, just look what it has provided the past 2 years. It's rather unbelievable. Since 2001, Madam President, we have faced the worst drought since the Dust Bowl in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And in Nebraska now, in many cases in Nebraska, it's worse than any other place. And then we had the massive flooding along the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers, and hurricanes that simply devastated the Northeast as well. I don't know what we've done to Mother Nature, but she sure hasn't been very kind to us. In 2012, the drought worsened and spread across the Midwest to states like Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois. Whoops, now we're into the Midwest. Now we got headlines about the drought. We burn up almost every year out in our country on the high plains. Nobody pays any attention, but you get it in the Midwest, you get a lot of attention. Just months after all of this, why producers are still now tuning up their equipment and preparing their fields to put seed in the ground once again. Farmer never puts any seed in the ground without hope for a crop. Hope springs eternal in regards to agriculture. And here we are once again having that capability. It's not because of some agriculture ad hoc disaster program that seems to appear every even-numbered year in this body, or any package that farmers through a disaster program would represent some kind of help. Farmers are back on their feet and producing the food that feeds a troubled and hungry world because of crop insurance. They're able to put the seed in the ground again because they managed their risk and protected their operations from Mother Nature's destruction through the purchase of crop insurance. This is the one component of the farm safety net that requires a producer to have skin in the game. We could apply that to a lot of other things that we debate on the floor of the Senate. Don't forget that crop insurance only provides coverage if a producer actually has a loss. So a Kansas farmer might pay into the crop insurance system for years, or a farmer or a producer from Wisconsin, or for that matter, any place that values agriculture. But if they never experience a severe loss or a natural disaster, they will never receive a payment. Simply, crop insurance allows producers a way to manage risk so they can continue to provide a stable and secure food supply and pass their operations on to their children. And if that isn't a success story of the partnership between government, private industry, and America's farmers, I really don't know what is. But just because a program is successful doesn't mean there isn't room for improvements, and that's what the bill is that I just laid at the desk. Crop insurance is a big tent and plenty of room under it. The program already protects more than 250 million acres of cropland in the United States, more than 2/3 of the eligible acres that we farm. But there are still acres that are not protected and producers who cannot afford to purchase this kind of protection that they need. The more producers under that crop insurance tent and the more that are protected from disaster, the more stable our food supply and our rural economies will be. Now, we made great progress, as I have said last year in the Agriculture Committee on the Senate floor, improving crop insurance to bring even more people under the tent. And today, as I've said, I am here again to continue our work to preserve and protect and strengthen our crop insurance. My legislation enhances the crop insurance program by including something called Supplemental Coverage Option. If anybody cares, the acronym for that is SCO. It allows producers to purchase additional crop insurance coverage on an area yield and loss basis. It also amends the Federal Crop Insurance Act to make available separate enterprise units for irrigated and non-irrigated acreage of crops in counties. That's especially helpful in regards to what we're going through with another year of drought. The bill also addresses the declining actual production history, and that's a yield problem by increasing the county transitional yield. So if you didn't have a yield in your farm, but you could then go to the county yield average, you'll be in a lot better shape, be hailed out in one area, not in another area, and this would help in that respect. The legislation also sets budget limitations Yes, we set budget limitations on future renegotiation of what's called the Standard Reinsurance Agreement by requiring any savings realized in the SRA renegotiations to return to the crop insurance program, to return to the RMA programs. Let's don't use the crop insurance program where we have savings and then use it as a bank for other programs. That has happened far too often here in the Senate and in the House. The legislation also continues the Stacked Income Protection Plan. That's known as STAX for the producers of upland cotton. That means that all or most all of the commodities that we produce and the organizations that represent those commodities and represent those farmers who grow the commodities are in agreement. And cotton really was very helpful in the last Farm Bill. Meanwhile, in order to help pay down the debt and reduce the deficit, the legislation is fully paid for by the elimination of direct payments saving taxpayers $5 billion over 10 years. Overall, the legislation, excuse me, overall, the legislation will strengthen the farm safety net while at the same time saving taxpayers billions of dollars and preventing costly ad hoc agriculture disaster programs. Now, if you don't have a good crop insurance program, what you're going to get when Mother Nature doesn't behave and you get into these terrible, destructive forces of nature, and it always happens, and as I've said, it usually happens on an even-numbered year, you get into a disaster program. And then if you're going to get into a disaster program and you are going to take part in it, you better darn well make sure that you say, okay, I'm going to help you out, but don't put your name on it, because when it comes out to the Farm Service Agency and all the people that are supposed to implement it down at the Department of Agriculture and in every county almost in the United States, it's a disaster. It's a disaster to implement. And then down the road, when the farmer really doesn't get the kind of help that he or she needs, that's not the way to do business. And the cost of it annually is far greater than the crop insurance program. So overall, the legislation will strengthen the farm safety net while at the same time saving the taxpayers billions of dollars, as I have said, really preventing costly ad hoc agriculture disaster programs. That's what the farmer wants. The farmer wants certainty. If he takes part in a crop insurance program, he's got certainty and he has protection. Now, there was a time in the not so distant past when our farm programs greatly distorted planting decisions. As chairman of the House Agriculture Committee back in the day, along with others here in the Senate, we did everything we could to eliminate those distortions. Why? Because with the World Trade Organization, you can really get in a lot of trouble. I'm confident that this proposal is the responsible path forward for agriculture and that it won't drive planting decisions or lead farmers to plant for the government programs instead of the marketplace. With this crop insurance legislation, we have the opportunity to improve on an enormously successful program and continue good farm program policy. We have a lot of work ahead of us to pass and sign a farm bill into law, a lot of people depending on it, a lot of farmers and a lot of ranchers, and a lot of people who benefit from them. As I say, the lowest cost of food in the history of the world and the safest. And it allows us to use our wherewithal in a humanitarian way to be of help to those in need who undergo some very, very difficult circumstances. And as I've indicated, even involves our national security. Agriculture involves our national security, more especially in the role we play. So I look forward to working with my colleagues in the Ag Committee, farmers across the country, and industry partners to enact this legislation as part of the Farm Bill. Madam President, I thank you and I yield back.